je t'aime mon papa, benvenuto papa. يلا again. حبك يا بابا, سيدة والسلامة. We love you papa, je t'aime mon papa, benvenuto papa. Viva la baba. حبك يا بابا, سيدة والسلامة. We love you papa, je t'aime mon papa. Viva la baba. حبك يا بابا, سيدة والسلامة. We love you papa, je t'aime mon papa. Benvenuto papa. Viva la baba.
Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ. And a warm welcome to all of you joining us. We're coming to you live from Baghdad in Iraq. Our Holy Father is just outside the Syriac Cathedral, Catholic Cathedral, of Our Lady of Salvation here in Baghdad. He'll be meeting shortly with priests, bishops, religious seminarians, and catechists. We now see the interior of this cathedral. On behalf of Vatican Media, Vatican Radio, I'd like to welcome you all from wherever you're joining us today. Some joining through the various Vatican Media channels, our Vatican Audio Live Events app, or the Vatican Radio app, the Vatican News web portal, Vatican News English YouTube channel, or our Facebook Live feed. To all of you joining us through television, we have some of you tuning in through Catholic TV, Catholic Faith Network, Shalom World TV, EWTN, Salt and Light TV, at Madarshan TV. And to our radio listeners out there, some of you tuning in through Radio Maria in Latvia, others through Radio Maria in Papua New Guinea, and Luminous Radio, and to all the other local radio stations picking up the broadcast and other internet sites. My name is Sister Bernadette, and it is a privilege for me to be able to provide the English language texts and translations for you on this 33rd apostolic journey of Pope Francis, who finds himself in Iraq. He's been wanting to come here a long time. He's taking a look at something up there. He's now entering the cathedral, flanked by the local ordinaries. We have His Beatitude Ignatius Yusuf III Yunan, the Patriarch of Antioch and of the Syrians. It looks like also joining him is Archieparch Ephraim Yusuf Abba Mansur, the Archpatriarch of Baghdad for the Syriac Catholic Eparchy. It is difficult to identify people with certainty since they are wearing face masks to protect themselves from the current COVID-19 pandemic. We also remember John Paul II wanted to visit this land, but was never able to in the Jubilee year 2000 due to the political condition of Iraq at that time. A little bit about the cathedral our Holy Father is about to enter. He first is greeting the sick here. It looks like there's a Lourdes grotto behind. A moment our Holy Father generally finds wherever he goes to be able to meet with the sick. The cathedral our Holy Father is about to enter is the Cathedral of the Syrian Catholic Archieparchy of Baghdad, one of the largest churches in the city. It was the target of two terrorist attacks. One took place on October 31st in 2010. We heard the president of Iraq recall that attack. The so-called Islamic State took responsibility for that attack. It was extremely bloody. There were 48 Catholics killed. Another 10 were killed as well, including 2 priests. About 70 others were injured. The cathedral itself is located in the central district of Karada. The current structure was inaugurated in March of 1968. And it was built on the site of a small church that had been built there in 1952. And of course, it was enlarged in order to accommodate the then increasingly numerous and expanding Syriac Catholic community. As we enter the cathedral, you'll be able to see that the structure represents a boat. It was designed that way to provide the image of the bark of Peter, or another symbol of the church that carried Jesus and his disciples in the storm. An apt symbol that our Holy Father recalled during the extraordinary moment of prayer last March. Attached to the cathedral is St. Ephraim's Elementary School. After the attack in 2010, the church was renovated and a memorial was set up here, remembering the victims. The 2 priests who were slain are buried in the crypt of this church. So we're entering a very sacred place right now, and here we see our Holy Father was given the cross to bless the church, a custom observed in several Oriental rites. Before the Iraqi war, there were about 5,000 families who regularly came here into this cathedral to worship, and since 2018, all 3 of Baghdad's Syriac Catholic churches regularly welcome only about 1,000 families. Holy Father has entered the church now. He is standing just before the altar. A child here bringing him flowers, which he will now take. This is customary when our Holy Father enters a Catholic place of worship. Our Holy Father has now taken his seat, and now I can confirm that the person who has accompanied our Holy Father to the altar is His Beatitude Ignatius Yusuf III, Yunnan Patriarch of Antioch and of Syrian Catholics. Christians here in Iraq have long been awaiting our Holy Father's journey, and he sent them a video message prior to coming to their land saying, "I have greatly desired to meet you, to see your faces, to visit your country, an ancient and outstanding cradle of civilization." And coming as a pilgrim, he said, a penitent pilgrim, to implore from the Lord forgiveness and reconciliation after years of war and terrorism, to beg from God the consolation of hearts and the healing of wounds. As we see our Holy Father here, these are the sentiments he has brought with him. Sitting on the other side of our Holy Father is His Eminence, Cardinal Louis Raphael Sacco. He's the Metropolitan Archeparch of Baghdad of the Chaldeans. The motto of the Pope's trip to Iraq, "You are all brothers and sisters," taken from Matthew chapter 23, verse 8. Our Holy Father continued in his video message, "I am coming as a pilgrim of peace, seeking fraternity and prompted by the desire to pray together and to walk together, also with our brothers and sisters of other religious traditions, in the steps of Father Abraham, who joins in one family Muslims, Jews, and Christians."
Santo Padre, to bachlom ro'yo shariro wamdabrono hakimo, benvenuto nella pace, pastore vero.
Welcome in peace, Holy Father and wise leader. Iraq, its people and government leaders today welcomes you with great hope, Your Holiness, messenger of peace and fraternity. With filial affection and deep gratitude, your sons and your daughters in the Lord have the privilege of meeting their father, the Bishop of Rome, as their father on the first day of your long-awaited visit in this cathedral of Our Lady of Salvation, which is so dear to us. Saint Ignatius of Antioch the Theophorus, patron of our patriarchal see, affirmed that the Church of Rome presides in charity. Your Holiness, this is what you are exercising today, this great charity. The same apostolic father and martyr, in his letter to the Romans, said, "I am the wheat of God, ground by the teeth of the beasts, to become the pure bread of Christ." Right here in this cathedral, 10 years ago, during the Divine Liturgy on Sunday, 48 Christians, children and adults, women and men, among them 2 young priests, were massacred by terrorists. There were also more than 100 wounded. These innocents mixed their blood with that of the divine Lamb to witness to their oppressed brothers and sisters murdered or uprooted in Iraq and in the Near East, that Jesus himself, the Savior God, will continue to live in them as he promised. And we, fortified by this faith, with courage, wish to witness the risen Christ. We implore to accelerate the beatification of these martyrs whose cause is in process, so that they can exhort all of us here present to live our call according to their example. Thank you, Your Holiness. We continue to pray for your ministry. And we ask for your blessing. This was His Beatitude Ignatius Yusuf III Yunan, the Patriarch of Antioch and of the Assyrians, and we will now hear from Cardinal Sacco, the Archieparch of Baghdad of the Chaldean Church, Catholic Church.
Santità,
Your Holiness,
con molta gioia,
with great joy,
a nome mio e a nome
in my name
degli eminenti pastori
and on behalf of the eminent pastors of the Catholic churches in Iraq,
rivolgo il benvenuto nella
I
terra
extend our
di
welcome to you in the land of Abraham, the father of believers, with a popular expression we repeat when welcoming our pastors. And what he just said means, welcome, O Father, to our church. This is a great joy for all Iraqis. Your visit is a sign of your interest in the Eastern churches. Thank you, thank you. We thank you for this courageous visit that deepens our trust in the Lord and encourages us to continue in the life of faith and constancy or perseverance to consolidate our mutual fraternal relationships between Christians and with our Muslim compatriots whom we love as brothers and sisters. As you called them in your encyclical letter, Fratelli Tutti. Christians were the great majority when the Muslims arrived in our country, and they gave much to the Muslims. Rather, our ancestors created a model of coexistence, contributing notably to the culture. Today, we have become a minority, but we are a lively and active minority, and we have contributed to the construction of Iraq and to the development of its culture. In these last years, we have undergone many difficulties, dangers, and persecutions, and the greatest witness is this cathedral of the Syriac Catholics in which we are gathered this evening, which was subject to a criminal bombardment on the 31st of October 2010 during Holy Mass. 48 martyrs were killed, among whom were two of our young priests, Taher and Wasim, and many were wounded. In 2014, ISIS forced all of the 120,000 Christians of the plain of Nineveh and Mosul to flee. We thank God for the fact that these areas were liberated in 2017, and almost 50% of the inhabitants have returned. Despite what has happened to us and our pain, we have preserved the faith, our spiritual serenity, and our fraternal solidarity. And all the churches have done a great job of standing by the people who have been harmed, to help them and alleviate their suffering. Your Holiness, your paternal visit gives us the grace to overcome adversity. It reassures us that we are not forgotten and it generates in us confidence and enthusiasm to continue our journey of faith and evangelical witness, notwithstanding the difficulties we face, and to contribute along with our Muslim compatriots and others to construct our country on solid laws and to establish the values of citizenship and coexistence on the basis of a respectful fraternity in diversity and pluralism, God willing. Thanks to your prayers, your continued interest, and the goodwill of the Iraqis, we will emerge from our crises toward a better future. Thank you. We just heard the words of His Eminence Cardinal Louis Raphael Sacco, Metropolitan Archbishop of Baghdad of the Chaldean Christian Church, Catholic Church. He was created a cardinal by Pope Francis in the consistory of June in 2018. Our Holy Father has now taken his seat, and we prepare ourselves now to hear his words.
Beatitudini, eccellenze, cari sacerdoti, religiosi, cari suore, cari fratelli e sorelle.
Your Beatitudes, Your Excellencies, dear priests and religious sisters, dear brothers and sisters, I embrace all of you with a Father's affection. I am grateful to the Lord, who in His providence has made it possible for us to meet today. I thank His Beatitude Patriarch Ignatius Yusuf Yunan and His Beatitude Cardinal Louis Sacco for their words of welcome. We are gathered in this Cathedral of Our Lady of Salvation, hallowed by the blood of our brothers and sisters who here paid the ultimate price of their fidelity to the Lord and His Church. May the memory of their sacrifice inspire us to renew our own trust in the power of the cross and its saving message of forgiveness, reconciliation, and rebirth.
Il cristiano infatti è chiamato a testimoniare l'amore di Cristo ovunque in ogni tempo.
For Christians, in fact, are called to bear witness to the love of Christ in every time and place, and this is the gospel that must be proclaimed and embodied in this beloved country as well.
أصحاب السيادة الأساقفة الكهنة والرهبان والراهبات الأعزاء الإخوة والأخوات الأعزاء أعانقكم جميعا بمودة أبوية. أشكر الله الذي سمح لنا بعنايته الإلهية أن نلتقي اليوم، وأشكر غبطة البطيارك مارغناطيوس يوسف الثالث يونان وغبطة البطيارك الكاردينال مارويس رافائيل ساكو على كلماتهم الترحيبية. نجتمع اليوم في كاتدرائية سيدة النجاة هذه ونتبارك فيها بدماء إخوتنا وأخواتنا الذين دفعوا هنا ثمن أمانتهم للرب ولكنيسته ثمنا غاليا. أرجو أن تلهمنا ذكرى تضحياتهم بأن نجدد ثقتنا بقوة الصليب ورسالته الخلاصية للمغفرة والمصالحة والولادة الجديدة. ففي الواقع المسيحي مدعو للشهادة لمحبة المسيح في كل مكان وزمان. هذا هو الإنجيل الذي يجب إعلانه وتجسيده في هذا البلد الحبيب أيضا.
Come vescovi e sacerdoti religiosi e religiose e responsabili laici, tutti voi condividete le gioie, le sofferenze, le speranze e le angosce dei fedeli di Cristo, i bisogni del popolo di Dio e le ardue sfide pastorali che affrontate quotidianamente si sono aggravate in questo tempo di pandemia. Tuttavia, ciò che mai deve essere bloccato o ridotto è il nostro zelo apostolico, che voi attingete da radici antichissime, dalla presenza interrotta della Chiesa in queste terre fin dai primi tempi. Sappiamo quanto sia facile essere contagiati dal virus dello scoraggiamento, che a volte sembra diffondersi intorno a noi. Eppure il Signore ci ha dato un vaccino efficace contro questo brutto virus. È la speranza. La speranza che nasce dalla preghiera perseverante e dalla fedeltà quotidiana al nostro apostolato. Con questo vaccino possiamo andare avanti con energia sempre nuova per condividere la gioia del Vangelo come discepoli missionari e segni viventi della presenza del Regno di Dio, regno di santità, di giustizia e di pace.
وأنتم بصفتكم أساقفة وكهنة.
As bishops and priests, men and women, religious catechists and lay leaders, all of you share in the joys and sufferings, the hopes and anxieties of Christ's faithful, the needs of God's people, and the daunting pastoral challenges that you daily face, which have been aggravated in this time of the pandemic. What must never be locked down or reduced, however, is our apostolic zeal, drawn in your case from ancient roots, from the unbroken presence of the Church in these lands since earliest times. We know how easy it is to be infected by the virus of discouragement that at times seems to spread all around us. Yet the Lord has given us an effective vaccine against that nasty virus. It is the hope born of persevering prayer and daily fidelity to our apostolates. With this vaccine, we can go forth with renewed strength to share the joy of the gospel as missionary disciples and living signs of the presence of God's kingdom of holiness, justice, and peace.
يمكننا المضي قدما بقوة متجددة دائما لكي نشارك فرح الإنجيل كتلاميذ مرسلين وعلامة حية لحضور ملكوت الله، ملكوت قداسة وعدل وسلام.
Quanto ha bisogno il mondo intorno a noi di ascoltare questo messaggio. Non dimentichiamo mai che Cristo è annunciato soprattutto dalla testimonianza di vite trasformate dalla gioia del Vangelo. Come vediamo dall'antica storia della Chiesa in queste terre, una fede viva in Gesù è contagiosa. Può cambiare il mondo. L'esempio dei santi ci mostra che seguire Gesù Cristo non è solamente una cosa vera e giusta, ma anche bella, capace di colmare la vita di un nuovo splendore e di una gioia profonda anche in mezzo alle prove. Le difficoltà fanno parte dell'esperienza quotidiana dei fedeli iracheni. Negli ultimi decenni voi e i vostri concittadini avete dovuto affrontare gli effetti della guerra e delle persecuzioni, la fragilità delle infrastrutture di base e la continua lotta per la sicurezza economica e personale che spesso ha portato a sfollamenti interni e alla migrazione di molti anche tra i cristiani in altre parti del mondo. Vi ringrazio, fratelli vescovi e sacerdoti, di essere rimasti vicini al vostro popolo, vicini al vostro popolo, sostenendolo, sforzandovi di soddisfare i bisogni della gente e aiutando ciascuno a fare la sua parte di servizio del bene comune. L'apostolato educativo e quello caritativo delle vostre chiese particolari rappresentano una preziosa risorsa per la vita sia della comunità ecclesiale sia dell'intera società. Vi incoraggio a perseverare in questo impegno al fine di garantire che la comunità cattolica in Iraq, sebbene piccola come un granello di senape, continui a arricchire il cammino del Paese nel suo insieme.
How much the world around us needs to hear that message. Let us never forget that Christ is proclaimed above all by the witness of lives transformed by the joy of the gospel. As we see from the earliest history of the Church in these lands, a living faith in Jesus is contagious. It can change the world. The example of the saints shows us that Christian discipleship is not only something right and true, but also something beautiful, capable of filling life with new splendor and profound joy, even in the midst of great difficulties. Hardships are part of the daily experience of the Iraqi faithful. In recent decades, you and your fellow citizens have had to deal with the effects of war and persecution, the fragility of basic infrastructures, and the ongoing struggle for economic and personal security that has frequently led to internal displacements and the migration of many people, including Christians, to other parts of the world. I thank you, my brother bishops and priests, for remaining close to your people, supporting them, striving to meet their needs, and helping them play their part in working for the common good. The educational and charitable apostolates of your local churches represent a rich resource for the life of both the ecclesial community and the larger society. I encourage you to persevere in these efforts in order to ensure that Iraq's Catholic community, though small like a mustard seed, continues to enrich the life of society as a whole.
لحياة الجماعة الكنسية والمجتمع بأسره. إني أشجعكم على المثابرة في هذا الاجتهاد من أجل أن تتمكن الجماعة الكاثوليكية في العراق وإن كانت صغيرة مثل حبة الخردل من الاستمرار في إثراء مسيرة البلد بأكمله.
L'amore di Cristo ci chiede di mettere da parte ogni tipo di egocentrismo e di competizione. Ci spinge alla comunione universale e ci chiama a formare una comunità di fratelli e sorelle che si accolgono e si prendono cura gli uni degli altri. Penso all'immagine familiare di un tappeto. Le diverse chiese presenti in Iraq, ognuna con il suo secolare patrimonio storico, liturgico, spirituale, sono come tanti singoli fili colorati che intrecciati insieme compongono un unico e bellissimo tappeto che non solo attesta la nostra fraternità, ma rimanda anche alla sua fonte, perché Dio stesso è l'artista che ha ideato questo tappeto, che lo tesse con pazienza e lo rammenda con cura, volendoci sempre tra noi ben intrecciati come suoi figli e figlie. Sia sempre nel nostro cuore l'esortazione di Sant'Ignazio di Antiochia. Nulla esista tra voi che possa dividervi, ma vi sia un'unica preghiera, un unico spirito, un'unica speranza nell'amore e nella gioia. Com'è importante è questa testimonianza di unione fraterna in un mondo spesso frammentato e lacerato dalle divisioni. Ogni sforzo compiuto per costruire ponti tra comunità e istituzioni ecclesiali, parrocchiali e diocesane servirà come gesto profetico della Chiesa in Iraq e come risposta feconda alla preghiera di Gesù affinché tutti siano uno. Pastori e fedeli, sacerdoti, religiosi e catechisti condividono, anche se in modi diversi,
إن محبة المسيح تطلب منا أن نضع جانبا كل
The love of Christ summons us to set aside every kind of self-centeredness or competition. It impels us to universal communion and challenges us to form a community of brothers and sisters who accept and care for one another. Here I think of the familiar image of a carpet. The different churches present in Iraq, each with its age-old historic, liturgical, and spiritual patrimony, are like so many individual colored threads that, woven together, make up a single beautiful carpet, one that displays not only our fraternity, but points also to its source. For God himself is the artist who imagined this carpet, patiently wove it, and carefully mends it, desiring us ever to remain closely knit as his sons and daughters. May we thus take to heart the admonition of St. Ignatius of Antioch, quote, "Let nothing exist among you that may divide you, but let there be one prayer, one mind, one hope in love and in joy," unquote. How important is this witness of fraternal union in a world all too often fragmented and torn by division? Every effort made to build bridges between ecclesial, parish and diocesan communities and institutions will serve as a prophetic gesture on the part of the Church in Iraq and a fruitful response to Jesus' prayer that all may be one.
سيكون بادرة نبوية في كنيسة العراق واستجابة مثمرة لصلاة يسوع بأن يكونوا جميعهم واحدا.
Pastori e fedeli, sacerdoti, religiosi e catechisti condividono, anche se in modi diversi, la responsabilità di portare avanti la missione della Chiesa. A volte possono sorgere incomprensioni e possiamo sperimentare delle tensioni. Sono i nodi che ostacolano la tessitura della fraternità. Sono nodi che portiamo dentro di noi. Del resto siamo tutti peccatori. Tuttavia questi nodi possono essere sciolti dalla grazia, da un amore più grande, possono essere allentati dal perdono e dal dialogo fraterno, portando pazientemente i pesi gli uni degli altri e rafforzandosi a vicenda nei momenti di prova e di difficoltà. Ora vorrei dire una parola speciale ai miei fratelli vescovi. Mi piace pensare al nostro ministero episcopale in termini di vicinanza. Il nostro bisogno di rimanere con Dio nella preghiera, accanto ai fedeli affidati alle nostre cure e ai nostri sacerdoti. Siate particolarmente vicini ai vostri sacerdoti, che non vi vedano come amministratori o manager, ma come padri, preoccupati perché i figli stiano bene, pronti a offrire loro sostegno e incoraggiamento con cuore aperto. Accompagnateli con la vostra preghiera, col vostro tempo, con la vostra pazienza, apprezzando il loro lavoro e guidando la loro crescita. In questo modo sarete per i vostri sacerdoti segno visibile di Gesù, il buon pastore che conosce le sue pecore e dà la vita per loro.
تقع مسؤولية حمل رسالة الكنيسة على عاتق الجميع.
Pastors and faithful, priests, religious, and catechists share, albeit in distinct ways, in responsibility for advancing the Church's mission. At times, misunderstandings can arise, and we can experience certain tensions. These are the knots that hinder the weaving of fraternity. They are knots we carry within us. After all, we are all sinners. Yet, these knots can be united by grace, by a greater love. They can be loosened by the medicine of forgiveness and by fraternal dialogue, by patiently bearing one another's burdens and strengthening each other in moments of trial and difficulty. Here I would like to say a special word to my brother bishops. I like to think of our episcopal ministry in terms of closeness, our need to remain close to God in prayer, close to the faithful entrusted to our care, and close to our priests. Be particularly close to your priests. Let them not see you as only an administrator or manager, but as true fathers concerned for their welfare, ready to offer them support and encouragement with an open heart. Accompany them with your prayer, your time, your appreciation for their work, and your efforts to guide their growth. In this way, you will be for your priests a visible sign and model of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, who knows his sheep and gives his life for them.
وسوف تكونون لكهنتكم بهذه الطريقة علامة مرئية ليسوع الراعي الصالح الذي يعرف خرافه ويبذل حياته في سبيلها.
Cari sacerdoti, religiosi e religiose, catechisti, seminaristi che vi preparate al futuro ministero, tutti voi avete sentito la voce del Signore nei vostri cuori e come il giovane Samuele avete risposto eccomi. Questa risposta che vi invito a rinnovare ogni giorno conduca ciascuno di voi a condividere la buona novella con entusiasmo e con coraggio, vivendo e camminando sempre alla luce della parola di Dio che abbiamo il dono e il compito di annunziare. Sappiamo che il nostro servizio comporta anche una componente amministrativa, ma questo non significa che dobbiamo passare tutto il nostro tempo in riunioni o dietro una scrivania. È importante uscire in mezzo al nostro gregge e offrire la nostra presenza e il nostro accompagnamento ai fedeli nelle città e nei villaggi. Penso a quanti rischiano di restare indietro, ai giovani, agli anziani, ai malati e ai poveri. Quando serviamo il prossimo con dedizione, come voi fate, in spirito di compassione, umiltà, gentilezza, con amore, stiamo realmente servendo Gesù come Lui stesso ci ha detto. E servendo Gesù negli altri scopriamo la vera gioia. Non allontanatevi del santo popolo di Dio, nel quale siete nati. Non dimenticatevi delle nostre mamme e delle nostre nonne che vi hanno allattato nella fede, come direbbe San Paolo. Siate pastori, servitori del popolo e non funzionari di Stato, chierici di Stato, sempre nel popolo di Dio, mai staccati come se foste una classe privilegiata. Non rinnegate questa stirpe nobile che è il santo popolo di Dio.
أعزائي الكهنة والرهبان والراهبات ومعلمي التعليم المسيحي والإكليريكيين.
Dear priests, men and women religious, catechists, seminarians preparing for future ministry, all of you have heard the voice of the Lord in your hearts, and like the young Samuel, you have answered, "Here I am." May that response, which I invite you to renew daily, lead each of you to share the good news with courage and zeal, living and walking always in the light of the Word of God, that we have the gift and responsibility to proclaim. We know that our service necessarily has an administrative component, but that does not mean we should spend all our time in meetings or behind a desk. It is important to go out among our flock and offer the gift of our presence and accompaniment to the faithful in our cities and villages. I think especially of those who risk being left behind, the young, the elderly, the sick, and the poor. When we serve our neighbors with dedication, as you are doing, in a spirit of compassion, humility, kindness, and love, we are really serving Jesus as he himself told us. And by serving Jesus and others, we discover true joy. Never step back from the holy people of God into which you were born. Remember your mothers and grandmothers who, as St. Paul says, raised you in the faith. Be pastors, servants of the people, not civil servants, ever a part of the faithful of God, never apart, as though you were a privileged class. Do not renounce that noble lineage, which is the holy people of God.
لا تنفصلوا عنه أبدا كما لو كنتم طبقة مميزة لا تنكروا الأمة النبيلة التي هي شعب الله المقدس.
Vorrei tornare ora ai nostri fratelli e sorelle morti nell'attentato terroristico in questa cattedrale 10 anni fa e la cui causa di beatificazione è in corso. La loro morte ci ricorda con forza che l'incitamento alla guerra, gli atteggiamenti di odio, la violenza e lo spargimento di sangue sono incompatibili con gli insegnamenti religiosi. E voglio ricordare tutte le vittime di violenze e persecuzioni appartenenti a qualsiasi comunità religiosa. Domani a Ur incontrerò il leader delle tradizioni religiose presenti in questo paese per proclamare ancora una volta la nostra convinzione che la religione deve servire la causa della pace e dell'unità tra tutti i figli di Dio. Questa sera voglio ringraziarvi per il vostro impegno di essere operatori di pace all'interno delle vostre comunità e con i credenti di altre tradizioni religiose, spargendo semi di riconciliazione e di convivenza fraterna che possono portare a una rinascita di speranza per tutti. Penso in particolare ai giovani. Ovunque sono portatori di promesse e di speranza, e soprattutto in questo paese. Qui infatti non c'è solo un inestimabile patrimonio archeologico, ma una ricchezza incalcolabile per l'avvenire. Sono i giovani, sono il vostro tesoro e occorre prendersene cura, alimentandone i sogni, accompagnandone il cammino, accrescendone la speranza. Benché giovani, infatti, la loro pazienza è già stata messa duramente alla prova dai conflitti di questi anni. Ma ricordiamoci loro, insieme agli anziani, che sono la punta di diamante del paese, i frutti più saporiti dell'albero. Sta a noi coltivarli nel bene e irrigarli di speranza.
أود أن أعود الآن إلى إخوتنا وأخواتنا الذين لقوا حتفهم.
Let me mention once more our brothers and sisters who died in the terrorist attack in this cathedral some 10 years ago, and whose cause for beatification is underway. Their deaths are a powerful reminder that inciting war, hateful attitudes, violence, or the shedding of blood are incompatible with authentic religious teachings. I also want to remember all the victims of violence and persecution, regardless of the religious groups to which they belong. Tomorrow in Or, I will meet with the leaders of the religious traditions present in this country in order to proclaim once again our conviction that religion must serve the cause of peace and unity among all God's children. This evening, I want to thank you for your efforts to be peacemakers within your communities and with believers of other religious traditions, sowing seeds of reconciliation and fraternal coexistence that can lead to a rebirth of hope for everyone. Here I think especially of the young. Young people everywhere are a sign of promise and hope, but particularly in this country. Here, you have not only priceless archaeological treasures, but also inestimable treasure for the future, the young. Young people are your treasure. They need you to care for them, to nurture their dreams, to accompany their growth, and to foster their hope. Even though they are young, their patience has already been sorely tried by the conflicts of these years. Yet, let us never forget that together with the elderly, they are the point of the diamond in this country, the richest fruit of the tree. It is up to us to cultivate their growth in goodness and to nurture them with hope.
تقع مسؤولية زراعة الخير فيهم وإرواء رجائهم.
Fratelli e sorelle, attraverso il battesimo e la confermazione, attraverso l'ordinazione o la professione religiosa, siete stati consacrati al Signore e invitati per essere discepoli missionari in questa terra così strettamente legata alla storia della salvezza. Siete parte di questa storia, testimoniando fedelmente le promesse di Dio, che mai vengono meno, e cercando di costruire un nuovo futuro. La vostra testimonianza, maturata nelle avversità e rafforzata dal sangue dei martiri, sia una luce che risplende in Iraq e oltre, per annunciare la grandezza del Signore e far esultare lo spirito di questo popolo in Dio Salvatore. Nuovamente rendo grazie perché abbiamo potuto incontrarci. Nostra Signora della Salvezza e l'Apostolo San Tommaso intercedano per voi e vi proteggano sempre. Benedico di cuore ciascuno di voi e le vostre comunità. E vi chiedo per favore di pregare per me. Grazie.
Brothers and sisters, first through your baptism and confirmation, and later through your ordination or religious profession, you were consecrated to the Lord and sent forth to be missionary disciples in this land, so closely linked to the history of salvation. You are part of that history, faithfully bearing witness to God's never-failing promises as you strive to build a new future. May your witness, matured through your adversity and strengthened by the blood of the martyrs, be a shining light in Iraq and beyond, in order to proclaim the greatness of the Lord and to make the spirit of this people rejoice in God our Savior. Once again, I am grateful that we have been able to be together. May Our Lady of Salvation and the Apostle St. Thomas intercede for you and protect you always. I cordially bless you and your communities, and I ask you, please, to pray for me. Thank you.
وأطلب منكم أن تصلوا من أجلي. شكرا.
At this time, there should be an exchange of gifts that takes place here. As we get a good overview of this cathedral, we can remember that this is we are looking on a site where 48 of our fellow believers in Christ of the church here in Iraq gave their lives for the faith. A reliquary, most likely of one or several of them now being given to our Holy Father by Archieparch Ephraim Yusuf Abba Mansour. He is the Archieparch of Baghdad of the Syriac Catholic Eparchy. Our Holy Father did kiss the reliquary, venerating the relics. And now our Holy Father presenting the gift he generally gives to the ordinaries of the diocese is that he visits with a chalice. We should be reciting the Our Father now together, after which our Holy Father will extend his apostolic blessing. He's inviting Cardinal Sacco to begin the Our Father in Arabic.
Benedica vos, omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus.
Amen. Questa stola è stata fatta da donne di Caracos, fatta a mano questa stola.
He is explaining that the stole was made by hand by someone in Caracos. And it sounds like we no longer have an audio feed. There should be a final hymn, and our Holy Father will be signing the Book of Honor. After which he will then, here we go, we do have the audio feedback. We see him now signing the Book of Honor here, leaving his message here for the Syrian Catholic community of the cathedral here in Baghdad. The bishops here represent the Assembly of Catholic Bishops of Iraq, representing the Chaldean Church, the Syriac Catholic Church, the Armenian Catholic Church, and the Melkite Catholic Church, as well as the Latin Church. And His Beatitude Louis Raphael Sacco, the cardinal here at our Holy Father's, what would be our right, is the president of that assembly. The Latin bishop also belongs to the Conference of Latin Bishops for the Arab region, which comprises bishops from various Middle Eastern countries. Our Holy Father now signing the guest book here. The message that he is leaving is, as a penitent and a pilgrim of faith and of peace in Iraq, I ask God to grant this people, through the intercession of the Virgin Mary, the strength to rebuild the country in fraternity. So we join our Holy Father in that prayer for our brothers and sisters in Iraq, trying to rebuild their country. The Iraqi Christian community, composed of Chaldeans, Assyrians, Armenians, Latins, Melkites, Orthodox, and Protestants, has been marked by persecution, as we have heard, also discrimination. Under Saddam Hussein, Christians lived through a motto that, or lived under a regime that allowed the church to carry out its activities, also through its charitable acts. But already with Saddam Hussein, there were succession of wars which started in the 80s, which began the exodus of Iraqi Christians abroad. The most massive of these exodus occurred after the U.S.-led military intervention in 2003, and then between 2014 and 2017 with the establishment of the self-proclaimed or the so-called Islamic State in the north of the country. On the eve of the Second Gulf War, Christians in Iraq estimated between 1 and 1.4 million, which would have been about 6% of the population. Today, the number of Christians present here in Iraq, barely 300 to 400,000, which is based on estimates of the Pontifical Foundation Aid to the Church in Need. Our Holy Father now posing here for a photograph with the bishops and Cardinal Sacco, who is present here. They're singing in Italian. Holy Father, most welcome. This is the second and final event of Pope Francis's first day on his 3-day visit to Iraq. He will now be taken to the Apostolic Nunciature, where he will dine and spend the night. It's almost 6 p.m. local Iraqi time right now. The Apostolic Nunciature is in the area, also located in the Karada district. It's an upper middle class area, one of the 2 main districts where Christians live here in Baghdad. This now ends the live broadcast from Baghdad in Iraq of the second and final event of the first day of the Pope's Apostolic Journey, where we've been coming to you live from the Syriac Cathedral of Our Lady of Salvation, where Pope Francis has just finished meeting with bishops, priests, religious seminarians, and catechists. We invite you to join us tomorrow. Our Holy Father will be taking part in an interreligious ceremony in Ur, we ask you to visit the Vatican News web portal, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube accounts. You will find full coverage of our Holy Father's 33rd apostolic visit here in Iraq, as well as other Vatican and world news. Once again, I'd like to thank the technicians at every level who've made this broadcast possible, and to all of you for joining us on our Holy Father's apostolic journey. Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praised be Jesus Christ.